Now, the second coming is also found in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2 through 9. So let's take a look at this section of Scripture. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2 through 9. This is a section of Scripture where God is gathering all the nations to come against Israel, and specifically Jerusalem, to battle. And as we're going to see something here, very fascinating, verse 2. Take a look. God is speaking now. And he says this, "For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle. And the city will be captured, the houses plundered, the women ravished, and half of the city exiled. But the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city." The very interesting part that I wanted to tell you about is God says, "I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem." So God is gathering all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. Does God use evil to ultimately do good? And yes, he does. He's the one that's gathering these nations, but they are coming on their own voluntarily as well too. But he's the one working this out. This is his plan, folks. And you know why he's doing it? Do you know why he's doing this? So that he will be glorified in the end. That's the purpose of this battle. That's the purpose of the tribulation period, ultimately, is that he will be glorified. Verse 3. Then, see, after this last battle over Jerusalem, it happens at the end of the tribulation period, towards the end. And verse 3 says, "Then the Lord, or Yahweh, will go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fights on a day of battle." Then the Lord comes back in the second coming to fight against these nations in Armageddon. Now, this battle actually begins back where Yeshua lands in his second coming, which I believe is in the Basra area. Today, that's Petra and the Paran mountain range. I devote a few chapters in the book concerning the Jewish roots of the second coming and why I believe Yeshua lands in Petra area when he comes back. So you have to check out the book when it comes out, because we're not going to be covering those scriptures tonight. Verse 4, "And in that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which is in front of Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives will be split in its middle from east to west by a very large valley, so that half of the mountain will move toward the north and the other half toward the south. His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives." Now, it does not say his feet will land on the Mount of Olives in the second coming. I believe that this section of Scripture is talking about his victory ascent to the Mount of Olives to let the Jewish believers of Jerusalem know that he is the Messiah and that he's just conquered all the enemies of the Jewish people in the Battle of Armageddon. You see, a lot of believers think that Yeshua is going to land on the Mount of Olives, but I don't believe that's true. I think he's just ascending to the Mount of Olives to cry out to the city of Jerusalem that's still under attack by the anti-Messiah, to say, "Look, I'm the Messiah, I'm the Jewish Messiah, I'm the one, I just conquered your enemies. And now I'm going to be coming into the city of Jerusalem to conquer the final enemy, which is the anti-Messiah." So Yeshua just needs to finish the battle over Jerusalem, and so he creates an earthquake and a very large valley so the newly saved Israel can escape the overthrown city of Jerusalem. You see, anti-Messiah is still in the city. There's battling going over that city, and Yeshua has just wiped out the enemies of all of Judea and then all of the enemies that are in the valley areas, Jezreel and Jordan Valley. So now he's climbing up to the Mount Olives, which is just opposite of the city of Jerusalem. Now, an earthquake forms, goes from east to west from the city, opens up a large valley. Look at verse 5. "And you will flee by the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains will reach to Azel. Yes, you will flee just as you fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God, then Yahweh, my Elohim, will come, and all the holy ones with him." See, the Jewish people then flee to safety in the newly created valley where the Mount of Olives used to be. And then the Lord comes to Jerusalem to finish the battle. All the angels in the body of Messiah go with him, but we do not fight along with Yeshua. He alone fights the evil ones. We don't fight with him. He doesn't need our help, really, right? So all the holy ones come with him. And then verse 6, and it will come about in that day that there will be no light. The luminaries will dwindle. And verse 7, for it will be a unique day which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but it will come about that at evening time there will be light. This is the second coming of Yeshua, right? And it's only known to the Lord. It's going to be day or night, we don't know, but at evening time there will be light. Now, all light will be gone by this time, either through war, because war causes shortages in electricity, and also, though, because remember the scriptures in Matthew, the sun, the moon, and the stars are not shining on the earth. Yeshua is wearing the Shekinah glory, the light of God, because he is the light of the world, literally and figuratively as well. This we saw in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29 through 31 in our last teaching. Yeshua, as the light of the world, he's wearing the Shekinah glory. He comes back with great power, great glory. That's the Shekinah glory. He's wearing the light of God. He's coming back to a dark place. This is one of the reasons why I believe that all the earth will see Yeshua as he comes back. Because the earth's going to be dark. The sky is going to be dark as well. And then what happens is a light appears in heaven. And then you have all those billions of believers coming back with Yeshua, and we're all lit up just like he is. And it's going to basically encompass the whole world from outer space. And the light's just going to be coming down into the earth. That's the way I think it's going to happen, and it's going to be awesome to see. And you can imagine the evil ones, they are going to be scared because they don't like the light. They don't want the light. But then they're going to have the light as it comes down. Next verse. Verse 8. And it will come about in that day that living waters will flow out of Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea and the other half toward the western sea. It will be in summer as well as in winter. Now, this is in the Messianic Millennial Kingdom. Living waters will flow from the fourth temple that Yeshua builds to provide blessed holy water for the Jewish and Gentile believers who make it to the kingdom in their human bodies. So this is the water that's going to be flowing through the kingdom for the believers, the Jewish and Gentile believers. Now we'll finish this section with verse 9. And the Lord Yahweh here will be king over all the earth. In that day, the Lord will be the only one, and his name the only one. In that day, which is the day of the Lord, Yeshua will be king, and he'll be king over the whole earth, folks. He will reign for 1,000 years in the Messianic Millennial Kingdom. And this verse clearly provides evidence that Yeshua will reign according to the Abrahamic and Davidic covenants. He will reign in the land of Israel, folks. This is the promise. This is the promise of God that the Messiah would be ruling and reigning in the land. Not necessarily the promise that he's ruling and reigning in heaven, but that he's ruling and reigning on earth, in his kingdom. And he's ruling and reigning the Jewish people as well. He certainly is ruling and reigning in heaven right now. No doubt about it. But that is not the fulfillment of the Abrahamic and the Davidic covenant. No. He's supposed to be doing it in the land of Israel, folks. In the land. Now we can take a look at the chart. Let's put that chart up on the screen here. You see, Second Coming in Armageddon, there's a cloud. Jesus is coming from heaven, from the clouds way up there in heaven. The dotted arrows all the way down to earth. See Revelation chapter 19, verse 11 through 16 there. It's coming just after, sometime soon after, Jacob's trouble ends. And we talked about that in our last teaching as well. And then we see the Messianic Millennial Kingdom. That's a 1,000-year reign of Messiah Jesus. And once that closes out, then we have a little bit of time, a few days, maybe a few months or so before the next event.